So today we are joined by Dr. Graham, the author of the 80-10-10 diet and a long-term raw food educator. Hey Doc, how are you doing?
Oh, fantastic, Julian. Treat to be here. Really happy being here.
Amazing. Well, I'm super excited to get into this conversation today. Nutrient deficiencies. And from your long-term experience, a concern that a lot of raw foodists have and people thinking about getting into this lifestyle is nutrient deficiency. So from your experience, would you say that raw vegans actually lack nutrients, or are we just misunderstanding this whole conversation?
I think we're misunderstanding the entire conversation. I think a lot of a lot of uh, applicable health concerns that people become exposed to in when on a mainstream diet become non-applicable concerns on a raw food diet. And this is certainly one of those. I would say that nutrient deficiency is fantastically overrated and overplayed. Um, and in fact, medically, most of the reports I've ever read say that somewhere between 90 to 95% of all nutritional problems in the Western world are problems of excess rather than problems of deficiency. So I'm going to start from there, even though I have an idea where the conversation's leading. Um, and maybe there'll be some discussions about building soil and plant access from the soil of nutrients and specific nutrients. Um, well, I'm going to start out by just going, no, I think there's some nutritional imbalances for certain, and there's um, definitely nutritional excesses, which, which if I look at the other side of that coin, I can then see deficiency relative to the excess. But by clearing up the excess, for instance, if I may, for instance, there's a nutrient that is essential in the human diet. It's a fatty acid known as omega 6. It's an essential nutrient. And one of the things that omega 6 fatty acid does is fosters the body's ability for forming clots. So when I get a cut or a scratch or a bruise, or I twist an ankle and I break a vessel internally, my body can heal that. And part of that process is through the formation of a clot. So clots are important, and clotting is an important feature. Without clotting, everyone would be a hemophiliac, and we'd all die very quickly if the blood couldn't clot. So when I have too much omega 6, now I'm predisposed to clotting. I'm prone to clotting, and clotting is a problem at that point because I can form clots inside my blood vessels. One of the ones known as a deep vein thrombosis, or getting a blood clot in the brain. I mean, this is serious business, and too much omega 6 can stimulate this problem. Now, the common response to too much omega 6 is to add that which puts it in balance. Okay. Because omega 6 is found in balance with omega 3. Omega 3 keeps the blood flowing. It helps the body creates a situation using omega 3s for keeping the blood flowing freely. So when I have too much 6, the mainstream reaction is add in omega 3. Well, yes, that will create a balance, adding in omega 3. So I start eating foods that are rich in omega 3. The problem is that we already had too much omega 6. Now we've got too much omega 6 and too much omega 3. And they relate to other nutrients in the body. And omega 3 and 6 being fatty acids are technically fats. So the more fats I eat, I'm either gaining weight eating all this extra fat, or I have to cut calories somewhere else. And the only place I can cut is by cutting carbs. So, okay, I can now get a good balance of 3 and 6 by adding 3, but I had to cut my carbs in order to do it. And carbs are the fuel of life. Every cell of the body is fueled by carbohydrate. So what the healthy answer is actually reduce the omega 6. And in a conversation about nutritional deficiencies, it seems almost weird to say, okay, and the way to solve this nutritional deficiency is by reducing 6. But I'm reducing it down to normal levels, reducing it down to healthy levels, reducing it down to sustainable values. And am I creating another nutritional deficiency? No, I'm actually creating sufficiency. So, um, another one is vitamin D, which isn't coming from food in the first place. My nutritional guide book, I used a medical nutrition book authored by a person named Guthrie. So it's called Guthrie's Nutrition. And Guthrie's Nutrition stated back in 1980 that 95% of all the vitamin D that a human gets, they get from sunlight. Now, a person goes for a test, a blood work, and they come out low in D. Oh, the vitamin D is low. Nutritional deficiency. What should they do? And what they do is they take vitamin D from a store. Okay, they buy the vitamin D, they supplement with D. There are a bunch of questions about that I won't even go into right now, but they raise vitamin D levels. And one would think all is well in the world, except it's not, because getting vitamin D from the sun is completely different than getting vitamin D from a tablet. In the body, they are both vitamin D. But what the sun does when also yielding the vitamin D, which comes from ultraviolet light, the ultraviolet light penetrates the skin a full centimeter into the body. And in that centimeter of penetration, it works as a disinfectant on the blood. So sunlight cleans the blood. It's the only outside source to the blood that directly disinfects blood, enabling the kidney function to work properly. Without sufficient sunlight, kidney function is on that part of the job is simply not done. The disinfecting part of cleaning the blood happens only from the sun. So again, a deficiency isn't as straightforward as maybe you might think it is. So, oh, we're deficient in D. Take D. It doesn't solve the problem because the actual D itself is only a piece of the problem. Sunlight affects various glands. Sunlight affects the eyes. Sunlight affects the skin. Disinfects the skin. Disinfects the blood. Sunlight creates a response by the body of melanin production. Taking vitamin D doesn't do any of those things. So this answer is a little more complex. Now, when I went to school from third grade on, I remember learning nutrition. As an 8-year old, the nurse at my school had a poster on the wall said an apple a day keeps the doctor away. I remember learning that very young. She had a little picture, and I in my health and nutrition courses, even as a 10 and 12-year old, I learned that fruits and vegetables are the most nutritious. And going through upper level schooling, kept learning fruits and vegetables are the most nutritious foods. Now, what does most nutritious mean is the question. And the answer was different than most people think. Because most people think most nutritious means the highest amount of nutrients. And that's not the case for fruits and vegetables. Fruits and vegetables have a nutrient package, or they deliver a nutrient package that most closely mimics human nutritional requirements. So, like the dress you're wearing, it fits. A dress that was 10 sizes larger wouldn't really be the best fit, or 10 sizes smaller wouldn't be the best fit. Fruits and vegetable nutritional makeup most closely mimics human nutritional needs. It's the best fit, and that's what makes them most nutritious. It leads to the other part of the question. Could somehow the food we eat, could the fruits and vegetables that we are eating somehow be less than optimally nutritious for us today compared to how they were in the past? That's part of the question, but it opens up a door for a different question. And that question is, what other factors besides food affect my nutrition? Is nutrition all about food, or does the amount that I worry affect my nutrition? Is the amount of stress that I'm under affect my nutrition? Well, isn't it interesting that B vitamins and C vitamins are considered stress vitamins? So that question's already being answered in the sheer name of B vitamins and C vitamins, um, dealing with environmental stresses, emotional stresses, chemical stresses of all kinds. So, oh, and what happens when I don't get the sunlight? Or what about B12, which comes from bacteria? There's many sources um, of nutrient gain and nutrient loss that has nothing to do with food. So, oh, what about soil depletion?
What
Well,
you're saying is that the stress vitamins that they are not being absorbed when we are having a lot of stress.
no, we use more. We
Oh, we
use
use
more.
them. When we have stress, we use a lot of these.
Sure. So when I go for a walk in the country, it's a lovely experience. And when I go for a walk in the city and I go behind bus fumes and car fumes and construction debris and maybe some foul aromas of garbage or whatnot, all of those things literally blow through my vitamin C.
Mm, mhm.
And then And then I have a near miss. A car almost hits me, or or I'm in a crowded bus that makes me feel uncomfortable, or I'm next to somebody where I feel insecure, and I go through those stresses and I blow through my B vitamins. And yes, you're right. That stress itself has a negative effect on my absorption of my B vitamins, which which makes an interesting thing. People have tested blood work for vitamin B12 before, during, and immediately after a 3-week water fast. And in 3 week in 3 weeks of water, found that on a water only diet, B12 levels consistently rise, even though there's no B12 being consumed, simply from the absorption ability from the mucous membranes, because the bacteria in our mucous membranes produce B12, and simply having it there, the increased absorption rates that occur during a fast, B12 levels rise. So, but yes, you're 100% correct that that absorption is also compromised.
So what I'm hearing you say is that it is a lot more about so many other lifestyle factors than just the food. And that really, when it comes to, for example, sunlight, there are so many things that we can't just get from an extracted vitamin D supplement, but that we are also taking in with the sun.
I would say you're hearing me 100% accurately. And that when I oversimplify a problem, I can come up with some false conclusions.
Yeah, and I think you're also mentioning an important point here about there's also too much. Like we can get also too much of certain things. And something I'm hearing a lot of people say is that we need constant variety and we need to eat different fruits and vegetables every day so that we can get all the different parts. What do you have to say about that? And do you think there is any risk of like repeating yourself with the foods that you're eating?
Uh, when people talk about the gut microbiome, as if they were experts in such a field, after just learning about it in the last couple of years, and B, adjusting diet as if it was a body hack. Uh, we can't biohack or body hack. This doesn't exist. Nature already set up a perfect arrangement. Perfect. And when it's a perfect arrangement, the perfect arrangement cannot be improved upon. It's already perfect. And what nature supplied was an endless stream of variety over the course of a year. And when it's mango season, I'm set up for eating mangoes. And when it's persimmon season, I'll flourish on persimmon. And in citrus season, I'll flourish on citrus. And when the berries are coming out endlessly and the figs and the grapes are just booming out, and the cherimoyas and the jackfruits coming, I'll thrive on those foods, as will my microbiome. And the gut microbiome, interestingly, changes incredibly quickly because most of those bacteria have a life cycle, a reproductive cycle of 20 or 30 minutes. I mean, they're reproducing really fast. You can go through I could go through 3 generations an hour. 75 generations in a day. And so the reproductive cycle, maybe the first day, when I lived in South Florida, I could only get mangoes in June, July, and August. That was it. We had plenty of them in June, July, and August, but they were only available then. The rest of the year, no mango available. Unlike in Europe, where I can buy mango any day of the year. In South Florida, only in season. And for the first 2 or 3 days of mango season, my stomach had to work. It was like not exactly happy with mango. And then for the rest of mango season, the next 3 months, wow, wow, mango's the best food ever and it digests perfectly. And then the next June would come around and I'd have to go through that same process of getting used to mango just a little bit for a couple of days while my gut microbiome caught up. It's the same thing that happens to vegans after 5, 10, 15 years of vegan, and then they decide to eat a steak for whatever reason. And they get a terrible stomach ache and they go, oh man, I just can't eat this way anymore. Well, if they persisted at it for 3 or 4 days, their gut would get used to it. It's not a healthy thing eating meat. I'm not suggesting that at all. But the body would adapt to it again. The microbes required for digesting the meat would reestablish themselves in the gut. It doesn't take long because the reproductive cycle is so quick that it's essentially like a population explosion every time I change foods. But eating all the different foods all the time makes absolutely no sense to me. It's in a direct conflict with nature's plan, with nature's design, with what nature offers. Nat- Different trees come into bloom at different times, different flowers come up at different times. I don't I'm enjoying I'm enjoying daffodils at the moment. And narcissus is right behind it. And tulips are right behind that. And I go boom, boom, boom. But I don't need to enjoy all of them at the same time, all the time. Each flower, I get to enjoy that flower and that smell and that vision. And then the next and the next. And the same with the fruits and the same with seasonal activities. And I'm raking leaves like crazy in October. But in the spring, I'm digging or building or whatever or repairing or whatever I'm doing. And, and in my gut, this whole idea of higher and higher gut microbiome scores. I disagree with this completely. I don't agree with body hack, and I don't agree with this little. So again, I'm going back to my opening sentence, which was a tremendous amount of the perceived nutritional issues in standard Western diet where this gut microbiome thing is real for the standard American diet because they're on the same 4 or 5 foods all the time and never eating any other foods. Well, then introducing some greens makes a lot of sense because most people on a standard Western diet hardly eat any lettuce, vegetables, cucumbers, tomatoes. They hardly eat any of that stuff. But it's not like I have to eat 30 different kinds of lettuce every week. That's mythical.
Yeah, that makes so much sense because when I first transitioned to a raw food diet 7 years ago, it wouldn't be as easy for me to digest these foods. But now that I've been having them consistently every day, like it digests instantly. Like I'm often surprised how easy, because I have almost the same smoothie every day. And that would be my follow-up question because a lot of raw foodists I know have the same kind of smoothie pretty much every day, like bananas, some type of berry, or apples or dates. So, what do you have to say to people who are maybe concerned? Am I repeating myself a little bit? Am I running into the risk of getting into some sort of deficiency from having literally the same every day? Or would you say there's nothing to worry about?
I think I think a little bit longer term vision is required, or at least would be beneficial. One, in the course of the year, over the various seasons, most of the people that I've ever questioned who tell me, oh, I eat the same thing every day. No, they don't. They're just doing it in this season or that season. But when the mangoes come out, or when the jackfruit appears, or when the durian comes out, or when the citrus gets unbelievable, or when the melons are awesome, or when the grapes are so good that it's easy to make a meal of them. In fig season, I'm eating figs, and in persimmon season, I'm eating persimmon. And and although bananas are a default fruit for me, I'll always fall back on bananas when there's not something else even more alluring. And I'd be happy to eat bananas every day. I'm not eating only bananas every day forevermore. So no, I don't think it's as I don't see problems in this regard. Now, the guys who are eating only white bread and cans of baked beans, and that's all they'll eat. Yes, that's going to turn into a problem. That's in total denial of nature's fostering of all this variety throughout the course of the seasons and the course of the year. And yes, a person who says, I'm going to live on just oranges, and I've met such people. I met a guy who tried to live on just watermelon. He ended up losing his mind. I met a guy who tried to live on just citrus. He lost his teeth. I met a guy who tried to live on just tomatoes. He lost his bone density. Met a guy who tried to live on just fruit, what I call culinary fruit, not even including tomatoes or cucumbers, nothing, just culinary fruits. And he just lost all his vitality and all his strength in a matter of months. I've never seen anybody make 2 years eating just one food. Is it possible? Yes, it's probably possible. But what would be the point of finding out how long I can do something until something goes wrong? I mean, that's not the goal. The goal is how long can I do something and keep it going well? So variety in the course of the year is part of nature's plan. Simplicity at meals is definitely nature's plan. Every animal out there will eat one food at a time when hungry until full, as long as the food is available. Um, if I run out of food, then I'm going to eat something else. But the idea of eating a mono meal um, or a mono day because that particular thing is so good, that makes all the sense in the world. Um, and again, it's just this carryover. I see it more as just a carryover from a mainstream awareness. Oh well, my gosh, and our nutrition is so poor, and having that worry as a raw fooder makes no sense. Nutrition is fine. Fruits and vegetables are the most nutritious foods. Now, this whole thing about soil depletion has two parts. So one is the amount, the quantity, the depth of the soil itself. People say, well, it used to be 3 meters deep in California. Now it's only half a meter. Okay, well, that's soil depletion, isn't it? But it's not the richness of the soil. It's not the nutrient makeup of the soil. It's not the organic material in the soil. It's just the amount. And who cares? Vegetables don't care. Their roots are only about that deep in the first place. What do they care if there's 12 feet underneath that? It's like swimming in the ocean. What do you care how deep the water is? You're only swimming on the top. And so are vegetables' roots, only on the top. It wouldn't matter how
What
deep
you're
the soil
saying
was.
is that basically it isn't really depleted in nutrients, there's just less soil available.
No, I'm saying one of the ways the soil can be depleted is
Is by
sheer volume of soil. But there's also the idea that nutrients could be depleted from the soil. And that is a very real concept. And nutrients can be depleted. Nutrients can be depleted, and that can become problematic. Even more problematic is the idea that organic matter can be depleted from the soil. So all we're left with is dirt with none of the microbial life that typically makes for richer soil and healthier soil, because microbes are part of what allow plants to uptake nutrients. Microbes want something from the plant, and in order to get it, they have to give the plant nutrients, and then they can get what they want to get. So the plants can't thrive in microbial deficient soil or in microbe deficient soil. They need those microbes. But an interesting thought. Bananas are notorious for their potassium. Okay, bananas have potassium, as do all fruits have potassium. What happens when I grow bananas in soil that has no potassium?
they won't have potassium or not as much, or will they create it and put it in the soil?
Okay, they won't just create it. Bananas can't create potassium. Only the sun can
Yeah,
make
the plants
potassium, right?
photosynthesize it from the sun, right? And then
No, they can't synthesize potassium from sunlight. Um, the way, okay, so there's either potassium in the soil or there's not. And the banana plant can either access that potassium that's there, or there's none there, so it can't access the potassium. My question is, what happens to the banana plant? Does it A, not produce any bananas because there's no potassium? Or B, does it make bananas anyway, but they don't have any potassium in them? Which would you guess?
mm, I would say number one.
I would say number one as well. And I've grown bananas in potassium deficient soil and then added potassium to the soil. And the first batch produced no banana, beautiful plants, no bananas. Add potassium to the soil, and now the banana plant can make bananas because it can't make potassium deficient bananas. But there's other nutrients that, whether it's in the soil or not, the banana plant can still make bananas. So there's no iodine in the soil in Michigan, but still there's lots of farmers in Michigan. They grow tons of carrots in Michigan, mega tons of carrots. Carrots don't need iodine. They grow fantastic tomatoes in Michigan. Tomatoes don't need iodine. So it's not every mineral necessarily. And this is part of why I push for variety in the course of the year, for exposure to the various nutrients that are in different foods that are grown in different places, because the nutrient makeup in different parts of the world gives me a better nutrient assay.
And I think that
So
goes together with back in the days, we would also not stay in one place for that long. We would always kind of be nomadic, right?
Well, if I yes, to some degree. Um, the way gorillas do it is they stay in one place until they eat all the food that's there, and then they move. And then they move and 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 they move. And it might take them 2 or 3 years, but eventually they end up back where they started from. And it's all recovered. Nature has recovered itself, and there's food there again. And they start again. And when gorillas leave an area, it's pretty much a mess. I mean, they destroy it, it looks like. But by the time they come back, it looks as if they've never been there. Nature recovers quite quickly. And yes, this is more like what people used to do before we settled into one place and said, "I'm going to stay here." Uh, but even staying here isn't the worst case scenario, um, unless what happened to be someplace where there's a weird nutritional quirk. So, for instance, in Michigan, there's no iodine in the soil, and the first people that lived in Michigan that got all of their food from Michigan would be prone to iodine deficiency. Okay, well, this results in a goiter, a problem with the thyroid. And that area was famous because a lot of people there had thyroid problems called goiter. It would swell. And that happens. Okay. Getting food from other parts of the world actually solved that problem. Where people say, "Oh, everything should be locally grown." Well, yeah, unless you happen to live in that part of France where there's so much lithium in the soil that it becomes a problem and the people go mental, or you live in that part of the world where there's um, this, that, or the next mineral in such a mega dose, like lead in the soil can become a problem. And there's places where there's lots of lead. You can literally pick up clumps of lead. Um, and there's other such minerals that create hardening of the bones or accelerated aging factors or all sorts of different little or the Great Salt Lake area, right, where practically nothing grows because it's so salty. And it doesn't really support great health. Okay. Not everywhere on planet Earth is ideal for supporting great human health in the same way that I know that elephants live in certain parts of the world, or tigers live in certain parts of the world, or blackbirds live in certain parts of the world. And when they go out of their ideal areas, they get into areas that are called marginal environments. So if all the elephants are here in this one spot, out here on the periphery, there might be an elephant or two out there on the edge, and then beyond that, there's no more elephants. And the same is true for people. There's places that are super supportive of human development, and other places like Yellowstone National Park, where there's geysers everywhere and mud is boiling over, and wouldn't be a great place to live. It'd be a very dangerous place to live. A lot of sulfur in the air, and it's not really the ideal environment.
Mhm.
But there are ideal environments, and we've all found them.
Yeah, so I guess the only important thing is just that we get some variety in terms of the different foods we eat and the different places where the food is from, especially if we're not living in an ideal environment. But generally, especially as raw foodists, we don't need to be concerned about lacking nutrients because it is the most nutritious diet. And that also reminds me that one time I was making a smoothie with bananas and berries, and someone asked me while she was eating a noodle soup from like a package, Aren't you concerned about the soil depletion and minerals and
Hmm.
all of that? Or why are you eating so much fruit? That must be like so terrible now that the soil isn't very, rich anymore. But I guess we can summarize it in that way that it's just important to get variety from different places as well if we are in
Well,
a place.
nature's model is variety in the course of the year,
Yeah.
but each food has a season, and in that season, eat that food. I mean, when the blueberries are on the bushes, eat the blueberries. But there's also another part, and that is, where does soil come from? And soil is built by trees. Trees reach roots down into the soil, down below the soil into what's called the subsoil, and even below that, down to the rocks. And from down there in the rocks and the subsoil, they pull up nutrients. The roots pull up nutrients into the trees, into the wood, into the bark, into the branches, into the leaves, and into the fruit. Now, over the course of seasons, the leaves fall to the ground and some branches fall to the ground and they break down. And when they break down, they release nutrients from the subsoil into the topsoil. And this is how soil is built, through the breakdown of organic material from trees primarily. And so when people talk about eating fruit or the fruit being depleted, I'm going, where do you think the nutrients came from? It came from fruit trees and other trees bringing nutrients up from down deep and depositing it into the surface. This is a recycling process. And so, yes, is it possible that some of the fruit that I eat today has been shipped a long way over a long period of time and got picked a little bit too soon and has to ripen in my kitchen instead of on the tree, and that to some degree it has less nutrient quality than what it would have had if I'd grown it in my own backyard? And the answer is definitely yes. No question, homegrown food tastes better and typically is more nutritious than the same food that got picked a week early and had to go to the warehouse and then get shipped to some distribution point and then make it to the stores and then sit on the shelf and then I bring it home. I mean, it's lost something in that time. And still, fruits and vegetables will be more nutritious, have a closer nutrient makeup to our nutrient requirements than any other food. When we start with starchy food, for instance, and it has no vitamin C, where's that going to leave you? We start with meat and other animal products, and there's no fiber whatsoever and no vitamin C. Where's that going to leave you? So, no, there's no option that is even in second place behind fruits and vegetables. Fruits and vegetables are in first place. They stand alone. There's no competition. In fact, if it was a podium like athletes use, fruits and vegetables would be on the top of the podium and number one, and there would not be a number two or a number three. There's no other considerations as far as nutrition. Nothing else comes close to fruits and vegetables.
Wow. That was so beautifully said. And I love that analogy with the podiums. And this has been such a great conversation. Thank you so much, Doug. And lastly, I want to end off by asking you if someone out there watching is thinking about going on a raw vegan diet for a couple of days and really wants to try it out, but still has a little bit of concern, like, I might not be getting everything I need. I might be lacking something. What would be one piece of advice you would like to tell that person that's still a little bit concerned?
Eat more fruits and vegetables. They're the most nutritious foods. Their nutrient makeup comes closer to meeting my nutritional needs than any other food. All animals have a species specific diet, and where cows and horses and gazelles graze for their food, um, lions and tigers eat meat for their food. Human beings are designed anatomically and physiologically for the consumption of fruits and vegetables. You might like a specific fruit and vegetable that I don't like, and that's fine. We're not designed for all to eat the exact same fruits and vegetables, but we're all designed for the consumption of fruits and vegetables. That's our makeup.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Doug. I love that. And yeah, thank you for the talk. Thank you everyone for watching and have a great day.
Julia, thank you for letting me ramble and go on. I really appreciate the opportunity and the outreach. Um, and I support your efforts totally and look forward to the next time our paths cross.
Yeah, me too.
Bless.